Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm David Johnston. I'm the founder of Transcend Admissions Consultants. We were founded in 2010, and over the last 13 years, we probably helped more applicants from Taiwan apply to MBA programs than any other consultancy, but especially European MBA programs. I know some consultants really focus on, top MBA only, but we kind of do global MBA, and we've really had a lot of success with the European programs. And I think a lot of them are really quite good. So I'm happy to have a chance to invite some of our clients who were successful this year to come share their stories with you. But before I bring them up, I would like to just give you some information about general MBA application strategy. And I think this is going to be helpful whether you're planning to apply this year for fall 2024, or even if you're not going to apply, maybe you're going to wait for a year. What I'm going to say to you today is still going to be useful for you. So let's first just talk about how the admissions committee will evaluate you. I think it's really helpful. Before you start applying, let's think about how they're going to evaluate me to make their decision. So the admissions committees are going to be looking for different things to make their decision. Now, you don't have to be, 100% in every single one of these categories, but you just need to be good in a lot of them. So they're looking for smart people, people with strong professional experience, leaders who really get involved. They like people with international exposure, especially the European programs, because they tend to have a more diverse class than the US programs. So they're really emphasizing this. They like, of course, strong communicator, especially in English. They want people whose career goals are, make sense and are logical. People, do you know why you fit the school's program and culture? Do you know why you need the MBA? And just things that are unique about you. So I'm going to talk about each of these elements and how they're going to evaluate applicants. First of all, we just want smart people, and how are we going to evaluate whether we think someone is intelligent? Okay, well, GMAT and GRE test is an intelligence test, all right? And don't fret if your score is not perfect, but that's just what it is. How good is your GPA? So I would say this is a measure of intelligence and, how diligent and hardworking you are too. You have a strong GPA. Did you go to a top university? Which major did you choose? Let's face it, some majors are harder than others. Or within your major, did you choose difficult courses, higher level courses, or difficult projects? And how do you do in the interview performance? So all of these combined will help us decide whether we think, you're a smart person. Even more importantly, top MBA, especially European MBA, because a lot of them tend to have the average age in the class tends to be a little bit older. So professional experience, really, really critical. They're looking for people who've been succeeding in their career so far. And how do we evaluate who's succeeding in their careers? Well, the company you work for, the more famous the company, the better, okay? Did you have a lot of management experience so far in your career? What have you achieved? Have you been making impacts in your company? Even if you're not really a manager or leading a lot, but can you show impact? That's the type of people we want, impact people. Have you been promoted? Or even if you haven't had time to be promoted, were you given increased responsibility quickly for someone at your level? Did you learn a lot of different knowledge and skills in this job? So this is what they'll be looking for. Did you have any international exposure at this job? All of these things combined will help us decide, kind of the quality of your professional experience. Is it outstanding? Is it good? Is it average? But really critical element here. MBA program, the purpose of the program is to train future business leaders, right? So that's a key element we're looking for, your leadership ability. They're going to be looking for that in the application. And people who just get involved. No matter where you are, you get involved. So do you have any professional leadership experiences? That's the most important. Or non-professional leadership experiences, things you did in college or things you did outside of work. All right, even if it wasn't leadership, but are you the person who really gets involved when you were in college or even afterwards? Of course, you're not getting as involved in as many activities after college when you're working and you're busy. But we still are looking for these types of people who get involved inside, outside of work, maybe even activities at work. You have your core job duties, and then you have things in your company you can get involved with, like diversity activities or sports, things like that. So we want these types of active people, especially these European MBA programs, highly value international experience. So work experience, education, Or even if it's not overseas, maybe you're working in Taiwan, but you work with kind of an international team, either remotely or you have foreign colleagues in Taiwan. That definitely matters, and that's a way to sell your international experience. MBA programs tend to be more project-based. They have case studies. You're expected to speak in class. You're expected to do a lot of teamwork and networking. So your communication ability is highly prioritized, okay? That's why they're going to look at the TOEFL or IELTS speaking section score the most and really focus on that. Obviously, your interview performance is a measure of your communication ability. And your essays then is a measure of your written communication ability. And if you speak other languages, that's a bonus. I mean, other than Mandarin and English. Especially in the European programs, that's highly valued because, most Europeans can speak 4 languages and often more. So if you can speak a third language or a fourth language, they highly value that. For career goals, they're thinking, look, is the career goal you're telling me, does it seem logical based on your background? Do you seem to have the right skills? Do you seem to be just motivated and knowledgeable about that? We're really evaluating this carefully because we want to feel like, yeah, this person, it seems like with their background plus an MBA, they seem likely to get that job. And that's important. Why is it important? Because they have to, post their career statistics, right? You probably see in business schools posting their career statistics. We have a 95% placement rate, right? And they show you all the industries and jobs. So that placement rate is really important to them. So what they're evaluating is, do we think you're the person who is definitely going to get a job when you graduate? So that's what you're trying to sell. You're trying to sell your future potential too in the workforce. And to emphasize this, here's an example of an essay question for ESSEC, the school in France. It's a question, what career are you targeting immediately following the MBA program? Blah, blah, blah. This essay question has 5,000 characters. 5,000 characters equals about 700 words. And the essay question is basically, tell me about your career goal. That's the whole question. You have a maximum of 700 words. So you get the point. They really care about your career goal, right? I could write my career goal in one sentence. I'd like to be a management consultant when I graduate. Period. Okay, you know my goal. But obviously that's not what they want, right? They want to hear about your passion and how you're preparing for it and why it's the best fit for you, blah, 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 right? And then after that, they're saying, look, I know you're applying to several programs, but we really want to find the people who want to go to our program the most. So I want to see that you're knowledgeable about our school and that you know how you can fit into our culture. So they're going to be looking to see through your essays, through interview answers, whether you really understand what's unique about the program. Not that you're just kind of saying you want to learn about marketing and finance and they want to feel that you've done the research and that you understand them and that you like them. You understand their culture. And to emphasize this, let's look at the essay question from LBS from the last couple of years, which is, what are your goals? But how can London Business School contribute toward these goals? So they really want you to dig in. They're giving you 500 words to really explain why you love this school, okay? They really want to feel that you've done your research. And then they're thinking, hey, but I know you want an MBA. I know you applied, you paid the application fee, but who really needs it the most? We have 300 spaces in our class, 600 people applied. So who really needs this degree the most? They want you to sell that too. Is this the right time? Do you have the right motivations? And that's why they're asking questions like this, HEC Paris's essay. I'm not going to read the whole essay, but again, they're giving you 500 words to basically explain why you need an MBA and why you need an MBA from this school, right? So these are topics you're really going to need to dig into. Finally, they're just looking at your personality. Are you unique? Are you outgoing? Are you, interesting? Are you curious to learn? Those are the little extra things we're looking for in applicants. Again, you don't have to be perfect and have everything, but you just need to be good in a lot of these categories, okay? I think I've mentioned 8 areas here. You don't need to be perfect in all 8, but you need to be strong in most of them. You may have a weakness or two, but as long as you can show that your strengths overcome your weaknesses, you'll have a good shot. Now that you know how they're going to evaluate you, let's think about some things you can do to improve, whether you're applying 3 months from now, 6 months from now, maybe a year or more. What can you do now to take your profile to the next level so you're better prepared for the application? In terms of professional experience, look, I have to say, the more famous the company you work at, the better. Now, don't panic if you don't work at the most globally famous company out there. Not everyone does. And believe me, there's plenty of people getting into top MBAs that just work for startups or local companies. That's fine, but I have to tell you, it is 100% for sure that people who work at a better known company, they're going to get more interviews. I can tell you that for sure. So could you go to a better company? You're probably not going to be able to do that if you're applying 3 months from now, but maybe you're not applying for more than a year. Or even if you're not going to change jobs, what can you do at your job to maybe raise your profile? Can you search for maybe an international situation or project to work on? Maybe you didn't have any international exposure. Maybe you can find something. Because especially these programs, INSEAD, LBS, they're really looking for those people. Or maybe you can volunteer for maybe you didn't have any leadership experience at work. So maybe you can find a project to volunteer for where you can perhaps be the project manager to get that leadership, strengthen that leadership credential. Or just maybe you're doing the same thing day after day and it's been 3 years and you kind of don't have much diversity in your job. Maybe you can just find something different to do, something where you can develop a new skill. So this may be a way to take your professional profile and raise it a little bit. What about leadership? What if you don't have much leadership? Like I've already mentioned, perhaps you can find something at work where you volunteer to manage some sort of project. Or maybe it's not in your core job duty. Maybe your company has, a diversity inclusion group, or they have, employee benefits committee or something. Like you can volunteer for something perhaps in your company outside your core job duties. Maybe that's a way to kind of raise your leadership profile. Or maybe it's just outside of work. You get involved in some nonprofit, and nonprofits always need help. They never have enough support. Maybe you can find one and really get involved, or even lead a small project. Lead a beach cleanup. Those things can really add value. They're not as important as the company you work for. They're not as important as your GMAT score, but they're still important, especially if you have no evidence of leadership ever in your life or very little. Maybe that's something you want to work on for the next year. If it's international experience and you don't have much, try to find something at work. Maybe there's a chance to work with an international colleague remotely, where you can say, okay, I've been working with an international team in my company. But even if it's not feasible to go abroad now, and go work abroad in the next few months, try to find ways to find coworkers from other companies, other countries that you may be able to collaborate with. Or even a short-term volunteer experience abroad. There's a lot of volunteer experiences that you could do. Now that the pandemic is over, perhaps you're gonna, take a break from work for a couple of months. Maybe you can do a short-term volunteering experience. I've seen lots of people who've gone to, the Philippines for a few weeks and done educational programs or social impact programs, and then wrote really nice essays about that. It can add value if you really never had any international experience. That might be a way to accumulate it. I've already mentioned why communication ability is important. So when you're preparing for the English test, really focus on the speaking section. That's what we're going to look at. And kind of for the top programs, they're usually looking for maybe a minimum of 23 there. Once you're below 23 on the TOEFL speaking, they're starting to question you. Okay, I'm talking about the top programs. Not every program has the same standard. All right, so just don't panic if you only have 22. All right, you're not automatically eliminated. It's just an estimate. Okay, but the higher the better. But usually, if you can get to at least 23, that's not bad. That's probably enough to not eliminate you just for that reason. But the real way that they're evaluating your English communication ability is through the interview. Okay? And I think a lot of people make the mistake of, they apply, they wait, they get the interview invitation, and then often the interview is 1 week later. And then they start preparing for the interview and they only have a week. It's really not much time. So I tell people, look, you really need to be preparing for the interview all throughout this process. You need to be thinking of the common interview questions. And, what are my stories? How would I structure an answer like that in 2 minutes in English? It usually takes several weeks or even months to prepare for that type of, high pressure interview. Or even some schools have 2 interviews, like HEC Paris and INSEAD, 2 different interviews, and they usually last an hour each. So usually 1 week at the end is not enough time. So a recommendation I make is really starting the interview preparation process early, which is something we try to do with our clients. So while we're working with them on our essay process, we have a separate interview package where we're actually doing mock interviews throughout that application process. For career goals, some people have a very, very specific career goal in the beginning. They know exactly what they want. But some people really are wide open. They're really not sure. They want to explore. But really, as you saw from the essay question that I showed you with ESSEC, they really want to hear a persuasive explanation about what your goals are. So if you really feel like confused and have no idea, then this is something you can be doing in the next few weeks or months or over the next year. Explore career goals. Talk to people that work in that job that you're interested in. Find someone who works, if your goal is management consulting, find a consultant to talk to learn about what they do day to day. What are the pressures of this job? What type of skills do you need to be successful in that job? That's going to be helpful later on when you need to write a long essay about, your passion for this career. But one thing is just do your research to make sure you really understand the job so that you can explain it in an essay and an interview question. And then maybe even take a step in that direction. If you're really trying to make a big career change and you want to convince me that you're serious about it, maybe take that first step. Maybe you want to switch from finance to marketing. Well, is it possible for you to do that in the next year? Think about it. I mean, that's the easiest way to persuade me you're serious. You already make a switch. Maybe it's not the perfect job, your dream job, but at least it's moving in the direction of where you want to go. Maybe you want to move away from finance and into marketing. Or if that's not feasible to switch industries, at least immerse yourself in that industry. One of my clients wanted to really wanted to get into fintech a couple of years ago, but he really couldn't find a way to get a job now. But he started going to conferences and events and talking to a lot of fintech professionals and entrepreneurs, and he put some of that involvement on his resume, and he started to build up a lot of knowledge and contacts. And then by the time by the time he was interviewing, and the interviewer said, "Hey, tell me about your career goal." "Oh, I want to work in fintech, blah blah blah." "Oh, why? Tell me more about that." He had a lot to say. He could have talked about it for 10, 20, 30 minutes. So yes, he had never worked in fintech. He didn't have that professional background, but because he had done the research and the involvement, he was well prepared to persuade people that he could do it. Like I said, knowledge of the school is important. So make connections with alumni, students, go to the MBA tour, go to their info sessions online, gather information. Because like you're going to need to write 500-word essays about how you love the school so much. So it's pretty hard to do that if you really didn't dig deeper. So do your research. This is what you can be doing this summer or throughout the next year. Learn about, and maybe you're like, okay, if I talk to the alumni and students, what am I even trying to learn? Learn which areas they're strong in. Where are the best professors? Is it a more quantitative program? Is it a more team-oriented program? Start to learn, the different nuances of the programs. Is it more diverse? Is it more country-specific? How about the career services? There's a lot of things you can kind of pick out, and later on when I say, "Hey, tell me why did you apply to INSEAD?" And you'll have lots and lots of reasons. You really need to persuade me. Okay, so you've done your research, you understand, the schools you want to apply for, you've upgraded your profile, you've taken the GMAT or GRE. The final step, you're going to apply eventually, whether it's 3 months from now or a year. First step in the application process is write a positioning statement. So I want to briefly explain how you want to write a positioning statement. A positioning statement is kind of a marketing snapshot. It's like, this is how I want to market myself to the school. So when I'm going to create a positioning statement, the first thing I do is analyze my target. Okay? What if my target is this MBA program, Duke Fuqua MBA program, a top school in the US? So I'm going to talk to alumni, I'm going to talk to students, and here's what they told me. It's super collaborative. They really want people with impact experiences and outgoing people with soft skills. So that's helpful. Now I'm going to try to build my strategy around what I know they want. And then I'm going to think, okay, how can I give them that? And I'm going to think about these different kind of skill categories that MBA's programs are looking for, like communication ability, analytical ability. I'm creative, I'm adaptable, I have quant skills, and I'm going to think, what have I done that can prove this? So I'm going to kind of do this, information dump think how I can demonstrate any of these skills, and then I'm going to think about what my target wants, and then I'm going to build my strategy around that. And the final thing is create a value proposition, a snapshot where you really, it's kind of like after I read your application, I read your essay, I read your recommendation letter and resume. This is what I should remember about you. This is your goal. You want them to remember you as a certain type of person. For example, so here's an example of a positioning statement, or another way of saying that is a value proposition. So this person decided that they wanted the school to see them as an unselfish team player, a community-minded person who always thinks of others first. They have a lot of, community and social impact experiences, a lot of teamwork experiences. Then their future goal is to, really make positive social impact for the world. So this is their positioning statement. So through their essays, through what their recommender says, through their interview answers, they're going to be really trying to focus on these concepts, because this is what I think my strengths are. And this is what I think, the school's going to value in me. Or how about another example? This person maybe they're an engineer, they have a deep high-tech industry background knowledge, and they're a leader, and they were a leader as well. They've directed an orchestra in college, they were captain of the basketball team, they managed a variety of projects. So they're kind of the tech-focused leader. That's their profile statement. I'm a tech-focused leader, and I lead in, whether it's at work, whether it's at school, projects. I'm kind of that person who always steps up and leads. So that's my kind of positioning statement, and I'm going to try to focus my essays on that and focus my resume on that. One more example. I'm an unselfish team player, and I'm an impact person. I always think of others first. I have a lot of community involvement in my work experience, folks. Okay, sorry, that was overlap. I should have deleted that. Anyway, I think you got the point here, right? There's different way to position yourself. So think about your different experiences. How can you, how can you stand out? What makes you unique among others through your professional experience, through the things you've done in college or outside, through studying abroad? What do you think can kind of differentiate you? Try to really capture that in a positioning statement. And then as you're executing your strategy, really think, am I really showing that? Am I really showing I'm a kind of a team player? I'm a collaborative person. Am I really showing I'm this kind of community impact person? Finally, a few tips before I wrap up here. I said focus on your core message. What do I mean by that? What I mean is don't try to convince the school that you're perfect at everything. There's plenty of skills that MBA programs will be looking for. There's plenty of skills they'll value, whether it's analytical skills, communication, leadership, creative thinking, being entrepreneurial. You don't have to be perfect and have every single one of these skills. There's no way to prove somebody that you're perfect in all of them. Think about what you're good at and focus on that and sell that. Of course, if you have weaknesses, try to mitigate those. Like if you never took calculus, you never took any math in college, you need to do something about it, okay? But still, you don't have to convince me that you're super quant if you weren't, right? You see what I'm saying? So try to focus on, a core message. Don't try to convince me that you're perfect at everything. And I think honesty is the best policy. Don't just think, oh, I think the admissions committee wants to hear this. They want to hear this, so I'm going to tell them what they want to hear. First of all, it's easier to be persuasive when you're being honest, okay? When you're being genuine. That's when you can really convince somebody, to like you and to support you. So kind of speak from the heart in your essays and your interview answers. This is just about start early. A lot of times people start writing essays, they kind of have a certain application strategy, and they get, 1 month into it, 2 months into it, and they realize this just isn't working. I'm not happy with my essays. I really kind of need to maybe not start over, but I need to make some changes. And if you're doing everything at the last minute, you're not going to have time to do that. So definitely get started early. Usually at least 3 months is a good amount of time, but maybe even more. Okay, but usually a minimum of 3 months if you're going to apply to several schools. I already mentioned this before, but start preparing for the interviews early. Don't wait until you have the interview invitation in hand and then start preparing. Okay, it's really not enough time. And if you can avoid quitting your job, I recommend that you do that. There's nothing wrong with having a gap of a month or 2 or even 3, but once you have a long career gap, 6 months or more, a year, you're really going to start to question that, because I've already mentioned before, right, that MBA programs really care about your work experience. You know, they're expecting people to be on this upward career trajectory, and if your career right now is no job at all, it's hard for you to convince me that you're, flying high in your career, right? So I know some people face a dilemma where they're really busy and they feel like they don't have time to study for the GMAT and they need some time off. Otherwise, they're not going to get that high score that they know they need. I know people face that dilemma, but just be careful with that and have a backup, have a plan in the future about, okay, I may leave my job for a while, but, I think I have a plan for 3 months from now. Here's what I think I can do next. Either have another job lined up or have a pretty clear idea of what you can do. Because once you have a gap of maybe 6 months or more, they're really going to start to question it. And, please write an essay about what you've been doing, and I'm going to ask you again in the interview. And you really don't want to face those questions if you don't have to, right? Okay, I hope that was helpful. Before I let our clients come up and talk, just feel free to get on our website and fill out the free consultation form. We're happy to give anyone who fills out the form a 20-minute consultation. You can ask our questions about why MBA, or, is my GMAT score high enough, or whatever random questions you have. Don't be shy. Take advantage of it. Our office is on the 15th floor in this building, so we're easy to find. And I hope that was helpful, but more importantly, let's bring up some of our clients who actually applied and were admitted to these schools. Let them share their experiences with you.
大家好，我是问，我是创生教育的问，那我也是 NYU Stern MBA 毕业的，所以很高兴今天来参加这场活动。那我们今天 David 给的这个 presentation， 我觉得非常有价值，干货蛮多的，所以如果有来参加有报笔记的话，那不管有没有跟我们一起申请，尽量 follow 这些 rule， 你应该会很高几率能够申请到你心目中梦想的学校。那我们现在先请Chantel 上来好了，我做这边好了，反正每个人都要上来。
哦，好。但是
就是我们今年申请上
ESA 对
ESA 的成功的申请队伍，那要不要跟大家介绍一下？
好，我叫Chantel，然后我是台大外文系毕业。那毕业之后我有7年的工作时间，那这段时间里面呢，我参加过跨国新创公司，帮他们募资，在台湾从零开始发展他们的事业。我现在的工作是在台湾的电商品牌当产品经理。那我的产品经理不是品牌的那种，就是 APP 的产品经理，就是要开发卖的产品，所以我要去思考整个品牌要怎么走，之后策略要怎么做。那我会想要申请 ESA 的话，是我觉得我的工作已经到了一个瓶颈，我想要借由这个学位去 advance my career。
这个大家都很厉害，但是我们现在都是来真的。我们就来问一下比较细的一个问题。
好，
你是台大外文系毕业的嘛？
对
不对？那你之后 career goal 你想要做？
我是做电商的产品嘛，但是我想要跳到电商的品牌，像 Amazon 这样子去做 Senior Product Manager。那其实像这些职缺的话，他们很多都会需要你有 MBA 的学历，然后加上我自己的背景是台湾外文系，我并没有很 solid 的 business training， 所以我也希望借由这个 MBA 的学位去补齐这一块学历跟能力的部分。
对，所以说到这个电商，亚马逊电商是很 require analytical ability，analytical 就是一些资料分析或者是一些数据的一些理解。那一个台大外文系的在申请这个东西，你觉得在申请上，你觉得这个优势是什么？劣势？
我觉得就是可能很多人会有一个疑问说，我大学也不是商管的，我工作经验可能也没有那么多 analytical skill， 我真的可以去念 MBA 吗？而我觉得我的答案是肯定的，因为其实我在申请学校这个过程中，也会有面试官真的问我这个问题。那我觉得如果面对这样的问题的话，你可以想的是3个面向。第一个是我可以怎么样对这个 community 学位的同学有贡献，所以我就有分享说，其实我在过去7年的经验里面，我累积了很多像募资啊、行销啊、开发产品的经验，所以我觉得我可以有贡献。第二点是因为我的职业目标很明确，那我可以告诉他说，我在这2年 ESA 的时间里面，我会用怎么样的资源，哪些 ESA 的资源，或是我用什么样的计划去弥补我这个 analytical skills 的，就是 的比较缺乏的部分。然后第3件事情是，我觉得你在申请学校的时候，除了你的职场表现以外，你其实可以尽量呈现你比较多的面向，让他知道更了解你，认为你有 business sense。因为像我自己嘛，我个人的业余的兴趣是投资，然后就是那时候面试的时候，我直接给他看我的绩效，我说我的绩效赢过大盘非常多，所以我觉得我有很强的 business sense， 所以我觉得我可以念这个 MBA。他就不讲话，所以我觉得是怎么样，你大学不是商管也没有关系，其实是你要去思考你有什么样的优势，以及你要怎么去弥补你的不足。对，
这个向前看的当女子啊。那这个我们来问一下 David 好了，就是 you think it is really a disadvantage except for all the reasons or all the factors that she gave? Do you think it's really a disadvantage for people who apply to analytical MBA program and how they are overcome if I really have this disadvantage?
An MBA program is not data science, but it does have a lot of like analytical elements to it. So for people who never took any math in college, they're really going to question whether you can kind of handle that curriculum. So if you were a liberal arts major, you should do something to kind of prove that you can do the math. And that starts with your GMAT math is not that difficult, but you need to have a good score. If it's really low, then we're really going to question it. But you maybe want to do a little bit more than that, like take MBA math is a really good test you can take online and get a certificate. But you always need to play to your strengths and mitigate your weakness. So in this case, Chantal is going to be stronger at communicating than the typical applicant who was not an English major. So that's her strength. She's going to stand out there. And as long as she can show them that, look, my math is maybe not at an engineering level, but I can handle operations management. And as long as she can do that, she can succeed. And I have another question for you, Chantal. You actually applied to some U.S. schools and European programs. Can you tell what's your sense of the difference between them now that you've applied to? She was admitted to ESA, but she was admitted to some U.S. programs too.
So you mean the difference of
what they're looking for, or based on your research, what's different about the European programs and the U.S. programs you were looking at?
就是关于欧洲跟美国的 MBA program， 其实一开始我跟传善合作的时候，我是2边都有申请，因为我其实那时候还没有想得非常清楚，说我到底想要在哪边生活。因为对我来说，职业目标是一个，然后我想要的生活也是一个，所以我那时候想说，好，那我就先全部都丢，所以我就是美国跟欧洲的申请，就再看看。我觉得在这中申请的过程中的话，我可以感觉出来，美国对于 GMAT 的分数是比较重视的。对，反而在欧洲的学校面试的时候，他们会比较 care 说你整个人除了你的职涯跟你的成绩之外，你有什么个人兴趣啊，他们会看你更多的面向。但美国的话，可能真的就比较 focus 在你的职涯目标明不明确，以及你的 GMAT 成绩，以及一些工作经验那些怎么样。所以我觉得有一点点不一样。因为其实我有面试 Foster， 美国的 Foster 跟ESA， 那美国的 Foster 基本上他们问我的问题都会一直针对我的职涯，他就会问得非常细，他会说，好，那你想要做 Amazon Senior Product Manager， 那你想要做什么 function？ 我就必须要分享说，我想要做什么 function， 因为怎样，我可以怎么做。他就会继续问很多细的 follow up 的。然后其实我那时候在最后面试完之后，我问他说，那你对于我这个面试你 feedback 如何？他其实基本上 feedback 都 follow 在说，我觉得你的职涯目标是非常可行的，所以我觉得这部分没有问题。基本上都是围绕着职涯，反而是在欧洲的面试的时候就比较没有那么全部问题都 follow 在职涯，他们可能也会问我说，你兴趣是投资，那你对于最近市场的看法怎么样？就会聊一些别的。所以我个人觉得欧洲学校会更看你整个人的 profile， 美国会跟美国有点不一样。
Okay, let's bring your future classmate up. Wait,
Okay, wait.
Guys are gonna be good friends soon.
谢谢沈。那维恩，你要不要来自我介绍一下？自我介绍一下，来。
好，大家好，我是维恩。那我一样就也是录取今年要去念 ESA。那当初我在申请的时候，我还有申请了 SRA， 所以都是在西班牙学校。那其实因为我本来的目标就是放在西班牙，那是因为我之前大学有去那边交换过，我也很喜欢那边，所以我想要再回去。那这也跟我的职业目标有关。我的职业目标是，我是 很想去赛车产业，大家可能很不熟悉，是一个在台湾很冷门的产业，对，但是在西班牙当地是很受欢迎，当然可能没有足球那么受欢迎啊，但是在相对来说，在那边是一个可以发展比较好的产业。然后我很 target 的一家公司也在巴塞罗那，所以我当初的最首要目标是选这2间学校，对。然后那我目前的工作的话，我工作经验大概是4年左右，都是在同一家公司，是在汽车产业做行销。对，
讲的蛮好的，我刚刚问的问题已经帮我回答了。不过没有关系，那我刚刚想问一下问题，其实想让大家知道，因为申请 MBA， 大家就会想说，会不会就只有什么管顾啊，会不会只有科技业的 PM 啊，甚至 investment banker 这样的东西才能做？那威安有一个非常不一样的，就是所谓的 unique career goal。那这样 unique career goal 让他还是能够上西班牙名校 ISA， 所以 career goal 应该是没有什么。那我们来问一下So, what do you think about the unique career goal, and then what is the best effective strategy to sell all these unique career goals to the mission communities?
I think on one hand, MBA programs like people, they say they like people who are unique, but on the other hand, a lot of people are shooting for the same jobs, consulting, investment banking, rotation programs at big companies. So they also need people to fill those common jobs. So when people like Wei-An show up and say they have a really unique career goal, he really needs to sell it, and he really needs to prove how an MBA can help him achieve that, and why maybe he can't get that job without an MBA. So that's what he needs to do. It's not that everyone needs to be a consultant, it's just that that's what most people want to. And when you don't want that, you need to show your program, your future job still fits into this kind of business curriculum, and it can still help you. And I have another question. I think some people are familiar with Spain, but not everybody is. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about your exchange experience and why you're so interested in this country, and why you'd really like to study and work there, for people who are not familiar with it.
西班牙的话，其实我觉得大家对它的印象应该就是旅游的观光胜地嘛，就是南欧那边。所以其实如果说生活在那边的话，我觉得是你整个是会非常放松的一个，就是你的生活应该会很慢。但是我也老实说，我毕竟是去交换的，如果有去交换过的人应该知道，交换生本来就很 chill 的，那在西班牙就会更 chill。对，那在那边工作的话，其实大家在考虑，比如说欧洲 MBA 的时候，大家可能很少会想说要去其他工作，因为其实现在的经济相对本来就比较不好。对，但是其实我当初是没有把这个放在考虑之中。应该说，我觉得虽然当然有好跟不好的地方，只是说你总是能找到一个你能，比如说你能做得下去或你能接受的工作。对，所以对我来讲，可能与其追求说真的很低的职位啊、很顶尖的公司，或是一个很高的薪水，我可能会更偏向说我追求想要的那种生活方式一点。对，所以当初我是可以接受的。
对，很 chill， 就是真的很爽的意思。OK， 好，那 David, any question?
Could you also say maybe why IESE really interests you? I know there's some things they're famous for, like using the case study 100% of the time. IESE and Harvard Business School are the only schools that use it for every class. But is there anything else you want to say, to sell your school to others? You're in the IESE community, so would you like to sell it to us?
其实就像跟你刚刚说的，也是比较出名的点，最大的一个当然就是 case study， 就是他说他有可能比如说超过90%以上的课都是用 case study 来上。然后其实我们在跟校友，比如说之前在跟校友聊的时候，他们也会说，你可能前面的2-3个 turn 你每天都要读3个 case。这也是我当初选 ESA 的另外一个原因啦，就是因为其实我工作经验只有4年，也不是在真的很国际的大公司，那所以我会觉得我的 professional 相对比较弱一点，所以我会想要透过一方面他2年的 program， 一方面是他在课程上面的，就是我觉得对我的帮助会比较大，不光只是过去那边networking 而已。对，所以我觉得这个都是蛮重要的。那当然就是对我来讲啦，还有一个就是 location， 但这个可能对每个人就不一样。
ISA 真的是对于他们的 case study 非常有。那如果大家有考虑要考去那需要来做功夫的话，可以来这个教育机构，我们这边跟 ISA 的mission 的关系都非常好，他们也常常会来这边办活动，这个样子。
I think the recruiting is very solid too. Like, we have a lot of clients who went there. The feedback's usually very, very good. I don't want to promote IENC, but I have to say it's a really good program. So if you hadn't considered it, take a look. Thanks, Wei Yan. Who should we bring up next? Okay, Jackie, please come up, say hello, introduce yourself. Welcome home.
这是我们今年一届的Jackie 的Jackie， 自我介绍一下。
好，大家好，那我是政大经济系毕业，我从毕业之后就一直待在 banking industry 工作，那前2份是在 local bank， 现在是在外商银行这样子。然后我的 future goal 是要转往 consulting， 就从 banking industry 转往 consulting， 所以以欧洲的 MBA 来说，我觉得 INSEAD 会是一个非常 solid 的选择，因为他们就是以 consulting 的 recruitment 出名的学校这样子。对，那简单自我介绍。
又把我要问的问题讲完了。我想这个 consulting 是一个非常常见的一个 career goal。那有些是在做相关的，接下来想要往 consulting 相关的去做，所以这算是一个 career switch， 就做一个career 的转换。那我来问一下 David 说 ，What do you think is the best approach for a candidate like this to do a career switcher? And what is the best strategy to accomplish the mission careers?
If you've never done anything like that job before, number one, like I said in my presentation, you just need to show you're very knowledgeable and aware of what you need to do and what type of skills that you need to have. And then you need to show that maybe you have some of the skills. Perhaps you don't have all of them, but maybe you have some of them, and that you can show that you've developed them in your previous career. So you can show, we call this transferable skills. You can take some skill you learned and move it from your current job to the next job. So you may not have every skill right now that you need for consulting, but you have some of the fundamentals and you're aware of what the job requires. I have some of the fundamentals, and for the rest, I believe I can pick them up in your MBA program. That's how you're going to start to convince them that you can make this change. And so, Jackie, INSEAD does 2 interviews, right, with alumni, and they usually dig pretty deep into the career goals. Did you feel that those alumni challenged your career plan?
OK， 就先跟大家分享一下，就是 INSEAD 的面试流程比较特别，就是他们是会安排2个，尽量找到 background 跟你比较相像的校友给你面试，所以在这个过程中，他会知道你现在的 skill set 大概有哪一些，因为他们之前在 INSEAD， 所以他们也会知道说，比如说像未来是要去考 consulting， 他们会知道说我需要的 skill set 有哪一些。那当然在这个过程中，他们就会非常用力的问你说，到底，因为如果你去了，但是你后来你在 recruit 上面没有做到非常好，对学校的整个期待来说是一个扣分项。那所以我就要跟他说，很明确的跟他说，我觉得我现在的 skill set 有哪些，因为我是做 banking， 我是主要跟企业户合作。那我的 skill set 就包含，比如说是 client relationship 跟 management， 我需要跟客人就是很密切的接触。那我需要很快速去了解一个产业一个公司，因为我需要去理解我的 risk， 我是做贷放嘛，或者是一些财务规划。那所以我会在这2个部分会跟 consulting 非常像，因为他们会需要跟客人密切的合作，那会需要了解这个产业里层，给出就是相对应的建议。所以在这个过程中，我是用过去的经验，去说明说我这些 skill set， 那我可以把这些 skill set 带到我未来我要转往 consulting 的时候，我一样可以发挥得很好。那我觉得至少以 result 来看起来，应该是有 convince 到他们这样子。对，
有 result 很好啊，应该是有 convince 到。
Okay, so if you look at Jackie's resume, you'll see in university a lot of involvement. He's a leader. He's a true leader. Unfortunately, because of all that leadership, I don't think he was studying very much. And his GPA is kind of low. I don't want to say how low, but pretty low. So, that's just, not everyone has really, really high grades. Plenty of people don't, and they can still get into MBA programs. But what would you say to these people out here who don't have a high GPA and are going to be applying for MBA in the future?
OK， 谢谢 David 讲了，那个不用自容，好不好？那对我来说叫 average。但是我觉得我那时候第一次跟 David 在第一次接触的时候，我就跟他说，我希望尽量越少知道我的 GPA 越好。很多人 其实这个 make up 方式有很多种，你可以在毕业之后去 take 一些课程，去拉高你的分数，或者是说服学校说你在这方面有做额外的。可是我在这个过程中我没有，因为我就是工作上非常的忙。那我的做法就是我尽量越少提到我的 GPA 越好，我连那个 HLS 我都没有讲。那我在 interview 的过程中，我是尽量就是避免这样的问题。那我把我的重点放在说，我在学校去做的这些 extra activities， 那到我的工作上，我怎么应用到这些技能？那我怎么就是从我大学的 leadership 的这个一些活动中，我去带到工作上，就立一个团队，那展现在我工作的成绩，那去用成绩去说明说，其实我在大学并不是什么都没有获得，就是我虽然说看起来 GPA 真的没有不足，甚至就是蛮糟的，但是你要用别的方向，就别的面向。像一开始选教提到说，欧洲 MBA 它比较看 overall 一个人的 profile， 那你可能在这一块比较 weak， 可是你在其他块其实对他们来说并不是一个非常非常严重的一个缺失这样子。对，所以我的做法是这样，那当然每个做法不一样，只是你还是要有信心，你是可以进这 MBA program， 那你要先预备好，就是不会遇到什么。
So like I said before, you don't have to be perfect in every category. You may have a weakness like this, but as long as you have other strengths, especially professional experience so far, you've been succeeding, you've been promoted, or you seem to be progressing, they're not going to care as much about the GPA 5 years ago. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter, but I think a lot of programs are willing to look past that and look at your potential. So that's why the essays matter. That's why your GMAT, GRE score matter. That's why the interview is there. Get a holistic perspective of you. So you're not just that college GPA. It would certainly help if you were a really good student. That will help convince us that you're going to be a good student at my school too, my MBA program. But it's not a fatal flaw. You can overcome it with the right strategy. And Jackie, would you like to say something about INSEAD？ 广告一下。
对，就是我觉得我当初选INSEAD，除了我的 career 的选择以外，另外一方面就是它是一个1年的，就对我来说是一个投资报酬率非常高的，花1年的时间，1年的学费，1年的生活费，我可以拿到一个 MBA degree。那我可以在这1年里面去接触到非常非常多，因为INSEAD很多管顾业会 sponsor 他们的 consultant 来念的学校，所以我在这个过程中，我就可以去接触到我未来想要去的产业，这是我觉得它的一个优势。那第二个优势是，它除了在法国以外，它还有在新加坡的 campus。那对于我未来其实不排斥回来亚洲工作，所以我在接下来的可能在明年倒数2个学期的时候，我会想要交换回来新加坡，建立在亚洲这边的人脉。所以INSEAD这边也 provide 了一个 traditional 的一个优势，一个优势这样子。那就是其实我觉得 MBA 校友们都会建议我们说，不要只 focus 在书上，当然书上东西非常重要，可是最主要的是你可以跟更多元的人接触，不同产业、不同国家、不同族群。那INSEAD主打我们在同一个国家或族群里面，我们不超过10%的学生。那在目前我们在现在线上一些活动上面，其实我也可以看到非常多，除了当然大众还是中国跟印度的学生，可是包含一些甚至我们其实没有什么听过的国家，那可能有1-2个学生在这个我们的 community 里面，所以我觉得多元化对我们接下来这一诱因是蛮大的，就是说我们可以更多的 exposure， 那更多的就是增加自己的理解这样子。
各位同学，这是一个非常好的 YNC 的 interview 回答方式。如果你有去算一下，就大概是2分钟左右的一个答案。所以除了广告之外，也稍微学一下 interview 的技巧 ，successful candidate。OK， 这边已经表演了。好
，Let's move on to the next person.
OK， 我们像打地鼠一样，那我们就下一个。我们蛮熟了，对不对？这个今年申请到 Imperial， 然后对不对？蛮厉害的，所以我们稍微请 Michael 自我介绍一下。
我是 Michael， 我之前大学是念工业设计，我毕业之后，我到目前大概2年半，到入学可能3年的工作经验。对，那我有待过金融业，还有管顾业，现在在管顾业。那会想要去读 MBA 是因为想要突破我的职涯限制，可能去科技公司当一些 PM 的 lead 之类的，对，就是想要追求更好的职涯发展。那我有申请 Imperial 跟 Oxford， 还有一些美国的学校。那最后就是我拿到 Imperial， 那 Oxford 比较 情况比较尴尬，我是拿到那个 conditional offer， 就是我要考到托福的成绩，因为他们托福要求要110，那我只要考到我就可以直接入学这样。对，先这样是我的状况。
你自己 reveal 我没有讲哈。110真的是一个非常难的数，为什么台湾这么少医生念 Oxford 真的是一个110的目标的卡在那个地方？要不然我觉得 Oxford 一直以来他们全都没有这个。那我们当初在合作的时候，其实我还蛮烦恼的，其实，因为就是问题很多。那你一坐下来你就说我要1年的 MBA， 或者说我要美国，我要欧洲，对吧？你把所有1年的 MBA 都列下来，所以我也不知道给你什么建议，全部都说了。所以那你可不可以告诉我一下，你为什么要选择1年的 MBA over 2 years？
其实我觉得要选择什么 MBA， 它就是一个 filter 的概念，就是你自己有什么侧重的点，然后你就慢慢缩小那个。那对我来讲，我没有要转换，我没有要做一个 career 的大转换，因为我还是会维持在科技相关的。我现在虽然是管顾，但我是做那个 digital 相关的，所以核心的domain knowledge 没有变，所以我就想要快速的去把这个 MBA 读完。那再来是说，我已经计划我读完回台湾了，所以我没有要留在当地，所以我也不需要2年的就中间可以做实习。所以我觉得其实每个人他都有自己考量的一些点，包括他之后想要生活的地点，包括他想要往哪个产业走，那每个学校他都会有他自己的，他是在哪方面很强的。对，那我觉得它就是一个 filter 的一个过程。
那个真想清楚，真的是很多人申请完了以后还是搞不太清楚。对，一开始这样有想清楚，就是非常好。OK， 那 David，what's your take on how to choose between 1-year MBA and 2-year MBA?
A 1-year MBA tends to be people who are more experienced because it goes much faster. You don't have as much time to take your time and learn. Like 2-year MBA is twice as long. You have twice as much time. So 1-year MBA tends to go really fast. So I'd say younger folks like Michael are typically not the type of applicant choosing that program. They tend to be more experienced. But the other thing is people who are not making a big career change. When you're going to make a big career change, you typically need to learn more and do more networking. And then the internship is very important. So with a 1-year MBA program, you don't have the time to do an internship. It tends to be a better fit for people who are not making a big career change. So like Michael said, he's kind of sticking in the same industry. So I think that's why it's still a fit for him. But I would caution you, if you've never studied business before, it could be very difficult to jump into a really intensive MBA program with a non-business background. I do believe Michael is going to be very busy next year trying to learn all these business skills from scratch. So it's something to consider. I have heard some people who were kind of engineers or technical backgrounds go into 1BA, and they did mention that they suffered a lot in this 1 year. It's quite intense. But maybe you could just tell us a little bit more, Michael. There's not that many industrial engineering majors are applying for MBA. Can you tell us your thought process of how you decided that you needed this degree and your motivation?
我先回答一下，就是 David 有提到说，就是我的背景还蛮，就是申请 MBA 的还蛮少见的，很少设计背景。那可是我会觉得，就是不管大家是念什么的，其实都不用太担心，因为 MBA 它其实就是它有一个很大的重点是 diversity， 它希望不同专家可以同样聚在那个课程上，可以分享他的专业。所以我觉得这并不是一个缺点，但是说可能有一些科系它本身就比较少这种 analyze 或是 research 相关的 knowledge， 那可能你在申请的时候就要去强调说，你在学校或在工作上有做什么额外的事情，那可以证明说你有这方面的能力。对，那像我的话，我原本是念 design 的，但是我未来想要去科技业，在更 long term 想要自己创业，所以我觉得我还是需要一个 MBA 去让我可以就是处理这些 business 相关的问题。那我就把我的这个 goal 给就是在面试的时候就跟他讲，然后也说我有做了什么准备，所以最后还是顺利可以拿到。对。
And regarding, you were admitted to Imperial first. I think not the most famous program. It kind of has a unique focus. Maybe you can tell us about that.
好，那 Imperial 它中文其实是帝国理工，所以它有理工2个字，所以这个学校它就是很注重科技相关的。 还有创业，所以这个学校它的创业率应该是英国最高的学校，它好像他在他学校的简介里面有写说，好像超过90几%的学生创业，这个数字超恐怖的，对，然后所以它其实就还蛮 fit 我的 long term goal。然后再来是说，它有一个特色是它的班级比较小，它一年大概就是70、80个学生。那有人喜欢就是在那种很大的班级，但其实我还蛮喜欢那种就是关系紧密，我知道我可以认识班上的每一个人，下课后可以去其他活动这样子，对，所以我还蛮喜欢这样的环境。那所以我在回答就是 Why Imperial 的时候，就是会把这些点给讲出来，那他们就会知道说，就是我其实是 fit 他们的。
你在面试的时候，这件事情困扰你很久，你也花了很多时间可能在练习。你可以，因为我讲没人会信嘛，对不对？因为你觉得我们是机构，那你讲我们也都没传，对吧？所以你跟大家讲一下这个 interview 这件事情到底觉得有多重要。
我先讲一下，我之前这是揭露自己失败的经验。我第一间学校是念那个 Cornell， 那是我那时候的就是 Dream School， 对。然后可是我第一次面试，我觉得真的不要把你的 Dream School 放在第一个面试，因为第一次常常会爆掉，对。然后那时候就是我拿到面试邀约之后，大概只有不到2个礼拜吧，好像8、9天，然后就要面试了。然后那时候一开始收到这个讯息的时候还没有到很紧张，但是真正时间接近会发现，就是去看一下那个 mock interview 长怎样，然后就发现不对，我现在大概只有20分而已，还差很多，就是完全就是一个惨剧，第一次面试。那所以我会觉得，其实你只要一投出你的文件之后，就立马开始准备面试，不管那间学校你觉得你拿到面试的几率有多大，因为其实有时候根本不会知道你到底拿不拿到这间学校，就像 Oxford， 其实我也没有想到我会拿到面试，对，所以就是及早准备。
那我无情工商一下，我们有一个 intensive interview package， 如果未来想要跟我们合作的人，或者可以，如果想要申请顶尖的 MBA 学校，不管是美国还是欧洲的，我觉得强烈建议各位买一下这个 service， 或者是买我们的 Premier Service 这样。David, any more questions?
No, congratulations, Michael, and good luck with your TOEFL test.
跟在座各位一样，就是我还在水深火热的拼命中，我还没有爽，对。
爽是主观的，因为 Imperial 的 Oxford 就是一个梦想在那边，那你做不做，然后门已经开了，踩进去就是了。OK， 那我们接下来还是让你工商一下 Imperial， 快工商一下，30秒快。
然后这 Imperial 它就是很适合想要创业的人，或是对科技业很有憧憬，因为它其实就是很明确就是这个走向。它在很好的 location， 它就是在伦敦的天龙区，对，像这边一样，伦敦附近就是治安也好，很多地方可以去，然后就可能大笨钟就走路几分钟就可以到了，对，没错。
OK， 好，那我们的最后一次地鼠嘛，那叫艳丽嘛，你可以帮我再按一下吗 ？OK， 好，那这是我们今天最后要分享的客户艳丽，是今年申请上 LBS， 看得非常非常的优秀，让我们请他自我介绍一下。
好，大家好，我是艳丽。我的背景是我是台大政治系毕业，后来毕业之后我就直接飞到上海去找工作，所以我是在上海的一家 startup。第二份工作是在 Mattel 那个托马斯小货车的那个集团里面做 MA， 然后各自就是待了大概1年左右时间，然后最后落脚在阿里巴巴，就是杭州的总部做用户增长，然后做了3年的时间。这是我在申请轮，也不能讲第一轮，其实就是第一间学校，就 INSEAD 之前的背景是这样。然后后来 INSEAD 没有上，我就当时做了一个职涯转换，加入一家 VC 的台湾公司，在里面工作大概快1年的时间，老师申请 LBS。
非常恭喜你 ，LBS 是一个非常困难的学校，我的非常好的朋友现在在 LBS 已经毕业了，他在那边也是念书。那其实我比较想问一下，你刚刚讲说你写的第一轮 Dream School， 然后就是直接 没有了嘛，对不对？那不知道怎么换一个字词，但是一直到最后你拿到 LBS 的这个 admission， 中间这个心态，其实申请就像一个马拉松嘛，你那个心态是怎么去调整的？你有没有觉得这半年过得特别的长？
中间的心态是怎么调整哦？其实应该是说，就是因为我那时候算是2021年的，对，反正就是那一 round 其实已经结束了，去年3月的时候，对，它算是我知道说，假设我 MCA 没有上，那我就是要投9月，然后隔年再去读。其实说实话，那时候 MCA 没有上之后，我就消沉很久，因为大家都说 MCA 的面试达成率很低，但这个可以讲，所以通常 background 上是你们比较容易有 chemistry， 所以面试起来的话，可能会相对来说聊得比较好。但是呢，我可以自己加吗？就我想讲为什么面试会是，就是我想要 echo 前面的同学们分享，我觉得准备面试真的蛮重要，因为我当时一是我觉得我的英文口说没有那么用在专业领域上面，我觉得我会卡词，我一卡词就紧张就更卡词，所以它就是一个恶性循环。我在MCA面试之前，其实我当时有面一些用英文口说直接面工作是没有问题，但我觉得就是因为你第一次面 MBA， 所以我觉得它更涉及到工作以外的领域的一些分享，比如说刚刚有讲到什么市场分享之类，那可能是我之前并没有 prepare 到，我又紧张，所以就更讲不出来。所以我其实那时候消沉了很长一段时间，但是后来我就决定还是想要再去进修，尤其是在我进了 VC 工作之后，我就更加剧了，我觉得我自己是真的想要转行，我真的有一段 financial background 的 knowledge gap 的这个状态，所以我觉得第二个就是在这段期间，除了面试英文的口说，我后来请了英文的家教。如果有需要，可以等下来找我，可以帮他工商。一个政治系的学长，以外，就是第二块，就是我觉得那个职涯目标，随着我进 VC 工作之后是更清晰了，所以我在 LBS 的面试之中，可以把整个故事线讲得更完整。那我就对 MBA 要什么，想得到什么，怎么得到这一连串事情，我自己其实就对我的人生方向也更清楚。对，然后就不要放弃，这样加油。
So David, definitely seeing many applicants struggle through these process. What's your suggestion or take on when people are doing this process?
But most people don't get into every program they apply for. That's just how it is. Once in a while people do, but usually apply to several schools, you're admitted to a couple of them. Not uncommon for people to face rejection here, so just be mentally prepared for that. It could happen. That's another reason why you want to start early, so that if you have a setback, you can recover. So that's why you want to apply in round 1 if you can. And let's see how it goes. Let's see how many interviews you get and how you do in those. But if it doesn't work out, you still have round 2 to make adjustments. And that's what Yanli was able to do. She got a different job by the time she reapplied. And, she improved her test score. So she had time to recover and practice more for the interview. And, there was more substance there. So, that's why starting early helps. If you try to do everything at the last minute and apply in round 2, that's everything, and you can't recover until the next year. So more motivation to just start the process early so that you can learn from your mistakes and quickly make adjustments and move forward. And I think one other thing that's interesting about MBA program is people have a lot of work experience, but they kind of want you to walk them through your resume in the interview and kind of help them understand your work experience. Why help me understand your path? What is your path? Why were you making these decisions? And they want you to explain that. And it's kind of challenging, especially when you've had 4 jobs in 4 industries, right? So maybe you could give some advice to people who've maybe made some career changes, how to kind of make a career path make sense that wasn't really, a straight line.
好，就是关于，其实我刚刚跟大家讲的自我介绍的版本，是想说，就是想让大家比较好用线性去了解我。那其实，在面试的自我介绍，我通常不会这样子讲，就是因为我的工作经历，大家听起来也是比较复杂嘛。那所以我 我是建议从2个方式下手，一个方式，你比如说我是想转行做 BC， 对 BC 它可能会有一些 skill set 是他想要，比如说对市场的了解，或者是你对新创产业圈的了解，这几项，或者是你跟你的 networking 能力之类的，就你可能把这些你想转行的产业的一些 requirement，放下来，把你过去的经历稍微梳理一下，看怎么塞到这个里面去，用这个逻辑来讲。第二种方式就是假设你没有那么清楚你接下来要干嘛，你就是想要念个 MBA 然后 explore 或是有好多种 option 的话，那其实我自己的做法是说，就是因为你职涯虽然是在转换嘛，但你可以从 A 工作跳到 B 工作，一定有其缘由，然后你的工作会越来越上升，你 scope 会越来越大。所以其实虽然听起来我好像跳了很多份工作，但我最终都还是定锚在用户增长，只是说我每一份工作它是覆盖在用户增长，从对不起我可能会讲一些中国用语，发新到激活到召回，整个就是用户的生命周期，它刚好覆盖在我的不同工作的内容之中。虽然说我跳了的确不同的产业，但是简单来说，他们其实都是 consumer goods， 就是 focus， 然后我只是从品牌跳到平台，然后并且覆盖在不同用户生命周期底下而已。所以你的 career path 可能会看起来有点小复杂，但是我觉得你最终是可以找到一个方式去串联出你自己本身的就是你的 expertise 是什么这样。
Okay. Any more questions?
And congratulations for getting into LBS. It's very difficult. I believe there's only 2 applicants from Taiwan admitted this year. Is there anything you want to tell us about the program?
好的，我觉得其实关于就是欧洲学校的优点，大家刚刚前面都提过很多，所以我就只是在小补充，就是几个部分好了。就是一个当然就是很显而易见费用嘛，欧洲的本身就是比较便宜。第二块我觉得大家可以考虑一下签证，也就是说你念完这个MBA 之后，到底有没有想要待在当地美国或者是欧洲的学校。那欧洲的签证当然各国是不一样的法规，可是相对美国应该都是更容易取得的。那其实我觉得欧洲学校相较美国 MBA， 我觉得这个优势所在。英国的部分或者说 YLBS 的话，一块像刚刚INSEAD的彤说的，就是其实 LBS 也是一个 diversity 很棒的学校，我们大概有90%出头的学生都是 international student， 来自于世界各地。我的面试官当时跟我聊天的时候就说，这样的多元性其实是改变了他从内到外作为一个人去思考这个世界，去认识这个世界的方式。我觉得这是很吸引我的一个部分。那第二块就是我LBS 它是以金融出名的强校嘛，所以说如果大家其实是想要在金融上有更大的 improvement， 或是想要转行，像我一样原本是想要转行做 VC 的话，我觉得应该也会是一个很不错的跳板，因为你会有很多金融界的人脉跟资源。我第三块是 LBS 的强项，但我觉得同时其他 MBA program 应该也都做得很棒，只是有点像是非常 career focus， 所以说他在找工作，比如说我现在就是想要找 pre-MBA 的 internship， 就已经有很多的职缺分享、校友可以 connect， 所以我觉得在求职这一块，它是非常 practical， 可以给到很强的 support 的学校。对
OK， 那我们接下来就开放 Q&A。那如果有任何问题，你可以举手发问，指明大家都坐在这儿，直接问啊，我们就直接回答你。那够吧？
我想问那个艳丽，就你说 LBS 特别难，然后 David 刚刚有在 emphasize 这一点，所以我想要了解，就是因为刚刚可能在 Jackie 讲英写的时候没有提到说特别难，所以 Jackie 要先想问的是为什么在欧洲 Top School 里面 LBS 会被认为是比其他 Top School？
我觉得好像问 David 比较好，那我可以先分享 David 在先说实话，我觉得你发现并没有差异很大，接下来是2个面试官，是1个面试官，所以其实我觉得有一点小差异是在LBS 的 application 上面，他会问很多你工作以外，比如说你的兴趣、你的 喜欢休闲时间做的事情，而且那是认真的题目，那不是 additional questions。然后你喜欢做什么及为什么之类的问题。但是我说实话，我在 process 中并没有特别感觉到相对更难。然后我也想同时可能难不难也不代表这个学校好不好。我觉得它的排名跟整体来说应该是很相似，只是最后求职的重点就是应该可能更偏consulting，LB 是更偏金融，但是可以请。
不好意思，我补充一下，如果有问题的话，你也可以问这个，用中文问的。
It's very common for people to apply to several schools and they end up getting into the ones that are more difficult and rejected by the ones that they thought were easier. It happens. We don't know why, but it may be because you showed more passion for the school that you loved the most. But INSEAD just has a much bigger class size than LBS, so they tend to admit 10 or 12 people per year from Taiwan. LBS, the class size is much smaller. But you just never know. Sometimes you go into an interview one day and the interviewer, they're just people. Sometimes you meet people that you like and you connect with, and some people you don't connect with, and there's no reason why sometimes. So you can just have a good day or meet the right person, or get really nervous and forget how to speak English one day, and it might not work out. But another thing is, he was unemployed for a while when she applied to INSEAD. She hadn't been working for a year. But then when she applied to MBA, she had a job. So that's why I said, try not to quit your job if you can, because it matters, and they'll start to question that. And they may have questioned her on that, and she had to come back to Taiwan because of COVID. But it had been a while, and that is a weakness. There's a lot of uncertainty there when you're unemployed. So try to avoid that long career gap. Any other questions?
想要问艳丽，就是你刚刚有提到一个，就是说签证的问题，然后我想知道说，就是你在 interview process 中有没有把这个当做是part of the motivation， 或者是 is it a good reason to convince them that you want to stay in the program？
我觉得可能他们更希望听到的是，就是不是很 specific 的签证，可能是更希望听到，比如说你对这个城市的喜欢，但它其实中间包含了。就是比如说你喜欢欧洲，会喜欢伦敦，喜欢它的 working culture， 喜欢这边的 diversity， 然后当然也包含签证，所以它是你喜欢这个城市，或者说你想要待在这个 location 的原因之一。但是如果单只有签证一件事情的话，那我觉得可能会相对就是更就是有点小薄弱，可能要再加其他因素，整体来说就会听起来比较丰满这样。但我的确在我面试的时候，就是我有讲到他问 YLBS 的时候，我在带到我喜欢欧洲文化跟我想要在伦敦工作之余，我是有讲到这个，就是表示我有做功课这样。
有问题吗？不要害羞，都来了对不对 ？OK， 如果都没有问题的话，等一下结束的时候，你们还是可以再去找他们，他们都还会再给你带一下子，所以都可以来问问题。那就是什么
Thanks for coming, everyone. I hope this was helpful. And keep in touch. Good luck with your test prep and